whatever. As soon as we go to you, it's horrible scrambled audio. We're going to try to reconnect right now. If it doesn't connect clean, we're going to get you back on the phone. We'll hold you over if need be to make sure you get the time. We're honored to have you because I want to hear this specifically. Yes, he sent me these Royal Commission, Royal Academy documents. I have them here in my stack, shilling documents where the head individuals who get the supposedly deadly bird flu and other strains from government to then be seeded out to vaccine companies, where they're talking about priming the public with these and putting them out. And I mean, it's really shocking what it says. So we'll get him as somebody who's been studying this to interpret these documents for us here on the air. So that is coming up. In fact, I didn't know he was going to bring up those documents. I've got them somewhere here in my stack, but he can read those for himself. In fact, he emailed me those again the other day. Will you ask Rob Dew to print me the last email? It's an attachment from the British Royal Society. It's the Royal Society. Matt, will you ask Rob Dew to go print me that, because the stack gets so big so quickly. While we're waiting to get Dr. Horowitz connected again, let's play this Fox News clip so we can analyze it. Guys, go ahead and play this Fox News clip. Are we able to do that now? We have Horowitz connected? Or is Horowitz back? Okay, yeah, here is the Fox clip where they're talking about martial law, where they're talking about forced inoculations, and then it's all over the news. So this is being introduced to us now, but here's the key to all this. The border is going to stay wide open with the main vector. That's the globalist system, but we have to lock down cities and towns in America. So the border stays open, but you can't come out of your house, and we're going to forcibly inoculate you even if you aren't sick. Here it is.
The World Health Organization raised now the pandemic alert for swine flu to the second highest level, level 5. Right now, Mexico has implemented quarantines and world leaders issuing travel warnings, but of course it could get worse.
That's right. If it becomes a pandemic, you could lose some simple rights like going to the movies. Fox News legal analyst Peter Johnson Jr. joins us live here as well. Peter, last night when the President of the United States was talking,
with a good connection for now. We'll finish this clip up later where they openly say martial law. Dr. Horowitz, I want to go back to what you were saying, but first, can you answer the question? You've been studying this, as a doctor and as somebody who studied how pandemics spread. If you are saying leave the border open with Mexico, and this is really so deadly, but leave the border open, but then we're going to lock down the U.S. cities. This is obvious that this is to train the American people how to be in lockdown Nazi Germany, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And as I've mentioned before, this could also be a covert operation to actually seed the population, because now the news is coming out that the virus is not particularly deadly. It's really relatively mild, and that's exactly what the recombinant was that the group at the World Health Organization, the organization that James Robertson, as well as the Novavax publications were talking about. Again, the most incriminating issue that I think has not been covered is the decision that was made already to loose these kinds of laboratory creations that would seed the population in advance of pandemics. And so it could be, like you've been saying, a covert operation in that regard.
Okay, Dr. Horowitz, explain to people, can you read to them from that British Academy, that UN document that you've sent me, that is officially off their site, where they're talking about priming the public, getting them ready? It's very, very chilling. What does that mean?
Well, it means that essentially that besides doing all the business of biopreparedness and protection of the world's population, the most advanced experts, they call them, in the field of infectious disease have already decided that they would loose viruses that they would produce in their labs that would go out and infect the population in advance of in advance of the big one, in advance of the real, like Spanish flu 1918, that they would do that allegedly in defense of the population, and allegedly for biopreparedness, and allegedly because it's doing exactly what this current epidemic is doing, or this pandemic is doing. That is, it's a mild exposure to a potentially lethal pathogen, and they have decided behind closed doors in bed with the drug industrialists that they're going to do this to unwitting populations without having any informed consent.
So this is really, you're saying, could be a mass inoculation, or at least that's their excuse to do this. They claim that they've weakened the pathogen to then release it into the public to protect us down the road from a real bird flu.
That's my number one best call based on all of the evidence. And on top of that, you have to understand the PSYOPs already administered has made billions and billions of dollars and further advanced the police state, the fascism, and the application of the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act that allows for the incarceration of populations, putting them into these quarantine, virtually concentration camps, injecting, infecting, and intoxicating, drugging them with whatever the public health professionals in their actual Manchurian candidate hypnotics trance state that is induced by standard cult indoctrination methods in medical education, continuing medical education, and this whole pseudoscientific process of literally creating brainwashed mind control slaves of the military, medical, petrochemical, pharmaceutical cartel. That's what's going on, Alex.
All right, up on screen we have the Royal Society, the Academy of Medical Sciences, and its summary of oral evidence, Dr. John Wood and Dr. James Robertson, National Institute for Biological Standards and Controls, NIBSC. And on the last page it says use of live viruses. Scroll down to the bottom of the document for me, gentlemen. Thank you for PrisonPlanet.tv viewers. Dr. Wood and Robertson were asked their opinion of priming the population for a pandemic using live vaccines, and if they consider it to be a good idea. However, the timing is critical. If live H5N1 vaccines are used now, it will be considered too dangerous. But if a pandemic is imminent, the risk may be justified. A stockpile of live vaccine with the cleavage site removed could be used as to prime the population in advance of the pandemic reaching the UK, even without an exact match in a virus strain. Now, what does that mean? I mean, they love to kind of read between the lines there or state stuff and the obvious, but what does it mean, prime the population with a live virus?
Well, this is exactly, notice you said the cleavage site or some aspect of the virus removed, and what may be happening is that this outbreak, because of the advance, you have to understand biological, biodefense, biomilitary operations are 10 years more advanced than what is commercial, commercialization and standard consumption in the marketplace. So these guys, if they have been actually publishing this, the covert science labs are 10 years at least, maybe 15 ahead, which means that what you're describing in that document is precisely what's being described of this virus, of this pathogen they're claiming is the cause of this pandemic. It is not quite human. It's got some human parts. It's got some avian parts, apparently. It's got, or swine parts. And it has cross-reaction when you understand and you read the science that has been published by CDC and Novavax. You understand that they have cross-reactiveness. That, in other words, if you expose a population to a mutated virus, weaken it, but just enough to cause immunity, and then add enough of the different strains, such as the swine flu, the avian flu, the Spanish flu, put it all together, and then you expose the population to that, even prime the population is what they're talking about, by some form of method of vaccination. Now, can you imagine what the outrage of the public would be if they were told that they're now must go get vaccinated against a pandemic that hasn't happened yet?
Well, speaking of priming, they are now openly on every major publication and TV saying you may have to take a shot, even if you're not sick, and we're going to lock your towns and cities. We're going to have the feds come out with the police and do this while the border's wide open. So they're really trying to set, whether they're moving this time or not, they're now introducing the idea.
Think about it. They may already have done it. And what they're simply doing now is a psychological operation that you consistently have always been accurate about telling the public about.
Amazing. So where do you see this going from here?
Well, I praise the Creator for the fact that this thing is not as severe as we thought it might be. I praise the Creator for the fact that we may have some time left to reverse the fascism and the manipulation and intoxication of the population.